Aloha Cupcakes. A number of you had asked for a little bit more detail and a real time shot of what it looks like when we're doing the practicing that I had demonstrated in the pinstriping video. So today we're going to go over all of it in real time. And yes, I'm going to keep painting slow, so it's going to take a little. For your shopping list, you're going to need something to use as a palette. You're going to need a brush. I'm going to grab some alpha blue, some reducer. We're going to use one of these little pencil-y thingies, and I'm going to use this grid stencil. You can use a ruler or even just blue painter's tape. I've covered that in a couple other videos where you just make your own grid, but for the sake of not taking an hour for me to set up today, we're just going to use this thing. Now this thing's set up so that each line is 1 inch away from each other, so they're spaced out, but I don't really feel like putting that much distance in between each of the stripes that we're going to do today. But basically all you do is you draw all the straight lines in this thing. Seriously, if you just want to take the time to do this with a ruler, it's not that big a deal. And then just slide it down a half an inch, make sure you're kind of squared up so that it doesn't mess with you while you're working. And then do this. The important part here is that we have 10 straight lines to work with. So once those are laid out, we're going to use a, well, you can use an oval, you can use a circle. For the sake of this video, I'm putting a line here so that I have a kind of a center point. But anything that's round, and it doesn't have to be necessarily a full circle. It can be an oval. It can be just something that's got a curve to it. I know a lot of people that use French curves for this, but I'm just going to do half circles. Part of the drafting stencils is they've already got half marks on the circles, so I know where to start and finish. Now we're going to start with the paletting up of the paint. Now this is going to be really important when you go to practice because everything that you practice on is going to be slightly different to paint over. So you're going to have to put a little bit of work into how you palette. All I'm really doing here is I'm putting some paint on here. I'm going to use the Tidwell Hippie today. This is brand new, so I got to treat it a little bit before we start. This is nice. Ooh, yeah, that's soft. Okay. This one's going to be a little bit floppy, but I treated it, trimmed it, and oh yeah, this thing is going to be super floppy. But we're going to just run it through. All I'm really trying to do here is to make sure that I don't have streaks in it so the paint looks consistent and I don't want to have any bubbles in it. Once it starts to get to that point, you're going to start trying to pull lines with it, and just going to get it to where they're coming out kind of smooth on the palette. Don't worry about how bad they look or how good they look. You're just looking for consistency in the paint. The brush is going to do whatever the brush is going to do right now, because it still takes a few more minutes, especially the first time you're using a brush. This process ended up taking me about 5 minutes. So the next thing is we're going to start pulling the lines. Now, I'm setting myself up for a 10-minute timer to do this. Now, in the practice that I kind of went over in one of the other videos, I give you a format where you practice for 7 minutes, review it for 3, and then I think told you to 5 minutes to just not think about what you're doing. That still holds true. So, you know what? No, I set the timer for 7 minutes. I didn't set it for 10. I set it for 7. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to knock out probably these first 6 or 7 lines, roughly, because it takes me about a minute to do each one. And I'm taking my time, partially because this is a palette paper that I'm working on. It's not the smoothest thing in the world, and I don't want it to be. I know ideally you want to practice on something that's smooth and it's going to have some major consistencies, but I tend to try to make myself have to work harder. And after the first couple of stripes that you pull on this, you'll kind of understand why that is a thing. Because see, the very tip of the brush, because I'm already starting to move when I actually make contact with the paper, it has a little bit more drag to it. So when we're doing this on like a smoother surface, you have these tendency, especially when you're first starting, to get these weird little bubbles or like teardrop looking things every time you lay the brush down. This forces me to have to already be moving to not get that. The other thing is that my fingers are going to drag differently depending on where it is in the paper. So I'm going to have to work on that. So I have to work a lot harder in order to pull a consistent line. So that when I go to do this on something that is smooth, then it's easier. I know it seems kind of weird, but you train harder than what you actually have to do when you go to do this in real life. There was a few little jumps right there, so that's another one of the consistency issues. Now understand that this video is being let to go real time. I am not speeding this up. I'm not cutting anything. I mean, yes, the video goes from camera to camera, but I am not messing with that. So you can actually get a feel for how long this actually takes. Now at the 7-minute point, I don't actually stop because I had my headphones in. So I was being a genius. So I had my timer going. The timer was set for 7 minutes, and I didn't hear it. But like I said, let me explain that one again, though. So what you're going to do is you're going to work. You're going to pull lines for 7 minutes. You're going to stop and you're going to critique your work for about 3. And then you're going to spend 5 minutes doing a breathing exercise. The breathing exercise is pretty simple. All you do is take a deep breath, hold it for 4 seconds, and then exhale. You're really going to spend 5 minutes doing this. Hopefully, you also are doing things like, I don't know, go get something to drink, contemplate the meaning of life. If you can watch 5 minutes of YouTube videos and not completely get suckered into just sitting there watching videos, then that's another thing for you to go do. Whatever it is, go waste 5 minutes of your life. Just walk away. Don't think about this. Don't worry about this. Don't touch it. Don't any of that. Just go away. And the idea of that is so that when you do come back, you're coming back fresh. So even if you were pulling goofy lines and like your hands starting to quiver, you're dragging your knuckles too much, or whatever the deficiency you have in your lines, like this one right here is just all wonky. So even if that is the case, when you come back fresh, you're able to just start over and not dwell on what you did wrong in the last set of stripes. It's a psychological thing. It's tricking yourself into just relaxing so that you can just start new. So this one, I actually took a break for a second just because I had to repalette the brush. Because it is a brand new brush and it does goofy things. And honestly, I wasn't even sure which side was the sharp side. So I had to just clean it and then start fresh. But obviously I wasn't that successful because it's still kind of... This brush is super floppy, by the way. But yeah, that's all you're going to do. Knock out the 10 lines. If you only get a few of them done in that 10 minutes or in the 7 minutes, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. One way or the other, you're painting all 10 of these lines, and then you're going to do 10 of your curves. It's not... It can take you half an hour. It could take you 12 minutes like it did for me. It really doesn't matter how long it takes for you to get it done. The idea is to take the breaks in the middle of it so that you can regroup and come back to it. And understand that if you're doing this exercise, this one specific exercise, and you do it in this format, you're going to do it more than once. So it's fine. Like your first couple times doing this, like I haven't done this one in a few weeks. And I mean just a few weeks since the last time I filmed the other video. And I'm struggling with it. So this is something that even some of us who've been doing this for many, many years still have to work at. So if it's not perfect every time, don't stress it. Just keep working. Although that line, I like the way that one came out a little bit better. Not necessarily in the video. When I'm looking at the paper, it looks better, which is just optical bias, I suppose. Yeah, this brush is kind of crazy. I'm going to have a fun time working with this later on. When this video is done, I actually get to use this one on a painting that I'm doing that's a commission piece. So this is partially so I can test out the brush as much as it is for me to practice with it. Because it's, yeah. Well, I'll probably do a brush review on this one while I'm working. Because it is my first time using this one. Okay, so line number 10. I think that's 10. Looks like 10. We're going to say that's 10. Now, understand when you do this, don't do what I'm about to do, okay? I paint upside down, okay? it is probably going to be a lot easier for you to start at the top and pull the brush towards you. For me, it is easier to start closer to me and pull away from me. So do it the way that I'm not trying it. This is just something that has become very comfortable for me over eternity, and I don't know how to not do it anymore. It feels weird to not do it, at least not with without using a scrolling brush. So the way that you're doing this one though, and part of the thing with this one is I am holding this brush where the handle is almost upright. I'm taking the tip of it and I am just dragging the tip across this curve. So even the most strict long lining brushes will allow you to turn this way, just in case you were wondering. So both a Mac 10 and a Mac 20, which are fairly rigid brushes, one of them is extremely coarse, in fact, will turn a curve if you can figure out how to do what I'm doing with this. Is that the best way for you to learn how to do curves? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it's been working. I've been doing this for a long time and it seems to have been working for me, but I'm also starting with the easier direction for me to pull curves, by the way. I'm right-handed, and this is an outer radius. What do you call that? This is the natural curve of your wrists, whatever the terminology for that is. So it works in a way that flows naturally. So this one should be the easier one to do. When you go to the other side of it, it'll be a little bit different. Now, one of the tricks with doing this one, though, is to just take your time. Let the brush do its job for this one. You don't have to actually do a whole lot. You just kind of guide it. And then try not to let it flare out too much. Like, I could have probably used a bigger curve or a less drastic turn than a circle, but where's the fun in that? Now, another thing that I don't really think that the video captures is I did have to add a little extra reducer in order to pull the curves versus the straight lines. It just needed a bit more. And that's probably because I've been working now for about 10 minutes-ish. So it's okay to reduce your paint while you're working, even if you're just doing practice stuff, because it's important to have that consistency. Yeah, right now that's actually what I'm doing, is adding reducer to it. And we're going to start on this other side, and yeah, this might not actually work. I may have made these circles a little too tight for me to do this, but let's give it a shot. So the same thing that I'm doing for the other side, I do it with this one. I do have to be a little more conscious of how close I am to the paper while I am doing this, because I am not resting the same way and my wrist isn't pulling the same way. So you learn as you are doing this how your hand moves. For me, for example, when I get towards the last, say, when I'm in the last 15% of that turn, I know that my hand has a tendency to dip towards the surface that I'm working on. So I have a tendency to then know that, and then equally have to know exactly where to pull back on the brush ever so slightly to prevent that from happening. Like right there, flared out just a little bit. And you can kind of see it. It's a little bit thicker towards the top there. That's just something that I have to work with. It is something that I know my hand is going to do it every time that I do this. So as you are doing this, you will learn what different deficiencies you have physically that are going to cause things like that, and you have to learn how to compensate for them. That really comes down to you just doing this 1,000 times and finally getting it to where you're comfortable doing it right. And then once you get it, it is completely okay to go on social media and just blast that you finally figured it out and you got this one line right, and you can be excited about it. In fact, I'm telling you to. So when that happens and you finally solve one of these issues, just go post it, tag me. It's fine. I will support you on that because I know exactly how excited you get when you finally get it right. And I encourage that. Mostly so I don't feel alone in the times that I've done that. But yeah, if you can pull this off, work for 7 minutes. Take a break for a couple minutes. Walk away for even more minutes. Drink some water. Focus on your breathing and just keep doing this. Over time, this is going to make you a better pinstripper for sure. So if you've stuck around this long, you should have something that looks just like this. Hopefully this helped you out. Hopefully this is something that is working. Hopefully this is a new concept that is seems somewhat viable to you. Let me know how this goes. Send me photos, send me videos. I would love to see how well you do with this. And until the next video, stay moist, my friends.